Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the GNAT-TV News Project Summer Edition. I'm Griff McClellan. Once again, pleased to welcome the GNAT-TV News Director, Andrew McKeever.
Hey, Griff, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Oh, not too bad. It's going to be a nice warm day out there today.
Certainly. First things first, I think it's important to dive into the elections, considering that this is our last episode before the primary takes place on Tuesday, August 9th. So what do you have to tell the public?
Well, the elections are finally here. The primary that'll decide who's going to be on the ballot in November in the general election. And I guess most of the attention has been focused on the race for the U.S. congressional seat in the Democratic primary between Becca Balint, the state senator from Windham County, and Molly Gray, the current lieutenant governor. They've been going back and forth very vigorously. I know my mailbox has been getting filled up a lot with a lot of mailing material. I guess one of the big issues they've been going back and forth on is campaign financing and support from political action committees or PACs. That's been kind of a back and forth thing. I don't know how much. I guess we'll find out how much campaign finance matters to voters. But that's one race. Obviously, we're keeping a close eye on, and next week we'll have a chance to discuss further. That's an important race. Over on the Republican side, there are three candidates: Liam Madden, Anya Tino, and Erica Reddick. Moving down to the U.S. Senate race, that's also become kind of an interesting race. That's where Peter Welch, the current Vermont congressional representative, is hoping to replace Patrick Leahy. He has to first win, of course, in the Democratic primary. It'll be decided next Tuesday. Over on the Republican side, it's been kind of interesting. I was interested last week to learn that Gerald Malloy, who is a political newcomer, a military veteran, is ahead of Christina Nolan, who I would have thought had much better name recognition, but it's going to be interesting to see who comes up in that race. And then the lieutenant governor race, of course, is also one that's been talked about a lot. David Zuckerman, the former lieutenant governor, apparently the front runner according to the most recent polling that we've seen, but Kitty Toll, a former state representative, is also pretty close, so that's kind of neck and neck. And then we'll see on the Republican side whether or not Joe Benning, who's sort of the, he's currently a state senator from Caledonia County, I believe. He's sort of your mainstream Republican versus Gregory Thayer, who's much more of, I guess you call him a right-wing President Trump supporter. So it'll be interesting to see who wins there. I guess that's a closer race than one might have thought in the beginning. More locally, we'll be kind of keeping an eye on the Bennington County Sheriff's race. Three candidates there in the Democratic primary. The winner of that probably will go on to win in the fall. And then there's also going to be an interesting local race for the state house between Michael Rice and William Jotty in the district that includes Dorset and Danby and Mount Tabor and Peru and Landgrove. That'll be one. Both of them are competing or don't have competition in their respective primaries. So we'll have a chance in September or October to have both of them here and learn a little bit about where they stand on that. But yeah, it's shaping up to be kind of an interesting primary, and hopefully as many folks as possible can cast a ballot.
Everyone, listen up. It's now or never. Remember to get out there and vote and make sure your voice is heard. You have until August 9th to submit your vote, and I highly encourage you to go to a town hall or anywhere in your town where you can submit your votes. Because at this point, it's important to note mail-in ballots might be considered late. There's just not enough time to submit them and get them through. So make sure to go out there in your town, wherever you can, and cast your vote.
Yeah, and it's interesting on that point too. Even if you mail it, let's say mail it today, but it wasn't received at a town clerk's office until, let's say, the day after the election, even if it's postmarked before August 9th, they won't count it if it doesn't get there on time. So definitely better to go and drop it off in person or at one of the drop boxes. Moving on to one other item we've been following is kind of interesting. Some of you may have seen the segment we posted on our website and have running on our television channels about the Lincoln Hall project going on over at Hildene. That's where the folks at Hildene are hoping to replace the large tent there and the event space that the tent enclosed, also the site where a lot of weddings would be held, or receptions for the wedding, I guess. So they're proposing to replace that with a very large 14,000 square foot building, estimated price tag $5.7 million. They have about 2/3 of that money raised. It would be private money, and hoping to start construction this November and have it open in the spring of 2024. So we'll be following that as it goes along. If that goes through, it'd certainly be interesting change over there. That'll be located right between the historic mansion where Robert Todd Lincoln used to live and the Welcome Center where folks come when they're going to visit, right in between those two buildings. So, yeah, it'd be an interesting space to have because they would be able to do a lot of different kind of events, seating capacity of over 200 people. They could be used for a lot of different presentations, and not just ones that might be Hildene related. So, might fill a gap in the town. They don't really have a space like that right now.
Tomorrow, Friday, August 5th, the town of Manchester will dedicate the new Skinner Point Park. It will be dedicated by local Eagle Scout Charlie Levine, as well as town officials, and there will be an official ribbon cutting as well. It's a big deal, and you can expect most of the community to show up. It's going to be a pretty decent crowd. And this Skinner Point Park is named in honor of former Vermont Governor, the 9th, that is, Richard Skinner, as well as his son, Mark Skinner, for whom the old library, I should say, was named after. Both Richard and Mark were prominent residents of Manchester back in the 1800s, so there will be a new park right along Depot Street opening officially tomorrow.
Yeah, that'll be a fun little event, and kind of building on the historical piece of that, on Saturday, around 11 o'clock over at the Factory Point Cemetery, the Manchester Historical Society will be unveiling a marker that I think a lot of people will find kind of interesting. It's about a demon vampire that apparently haunted the neighborhood back in the late 1790s, early 1800s, to continue on our little historical bent here. You know, it basically tells, it's going to tell a story about Rachel Harris, who was the first wife of a Captain Burton. She died in 1790 and was buried at the Factory Point Cemetery. She apparently was a very healthy young woman until she married this Captain Burton and passed away shortly after they were married. And then about a year or so later, this Captain Burton married again, a woman named Huldah Powell, and who was also considered very healthy and you know, an ordinary person who, guess what, became very ill soon after they were married. So, I don't know, we're beginning to see a pattern here. Anyway, before she passed away, there was this theory that circulated around Manchester that somehow or another the first wife, you know, Rachel Powell, Rachel Harris, was one who was sort of sending evil vibrations from the grave. And you know, conspiracy theories didn't just start in the 21st century. Apparently, a lot of people believe that it was some sort of spell being cast by the first wife from her gravesite, and so she was disinterred and then buried back in a blacksmith's forge. So anyway, interesting little story about, you know, the supernatural back in the good old days. So that mark will be kind of fun, I think. So we'll go and have a gander at that on Saturday around 11 o'clock when that's unveiled.
Switching gears now over to COVID news. As we've discussed in previous episodes, Vermont's COVID cases have remained pretty low statewide. However, the booster progress has fallen behind, according to the website VT Digger. While cases have remained low, hospitalizations have increased slightly over the past few weeks. There were 49 new hospitalizations last week statewide, compared to only 33 the week before. Despite this increase, Vermont still has the lowest case rate and hospitalization rate in the entire country. Additionally, Vermont hasn't reported any COVID deaths in the last 2 weeks either. So meanwhile, in terms of boosters, the CDC recommends that everyone age 17 and above should have at least one booster dose by now, while people 50 and older should have a second booster dose. Let's shift gears to monkeypox. Monkeypox, the viral disease which comes from the same family as smallpox, has recently been in the news, as I'm sure you all are aware by now, as there has been a recent outbreak. States such as New York, Illinois, Texas, California are among the states with some of the higher cases. There has been at least one case reported in 48 states. Thankfully, Vermont has hardly been affected. So in our state, it's not a huge concern at the moment, but it's still worth keeping an eye out for. We gotta remember to stay safe and be careful. And according to NBC News, there has only been one case reported in Vermont at this point. Andrew, let's go back to you. Do you have any news regarding MEMS in Manchester?
Well, yeah, just real quick. There's a story in the Manchester Journal this morning about a new co-principal who's been hired for the Manchester Elementary Middle School, Harrison Schulman. He will be the co-principal who will replace Betsy Mimo, who retired at the end of this past school year. The other co-principal, Deb Fishwick, will remain. She handles the grades kindergarten through 4, so Mr. Schulman will be in charge of grades 5 through 8. We're looking forward to having an opportunity to meet him at some point, perhaps in September. Have him come down and maybe, well, perhaps both of them come down and talk a little bit about what their plans are for the coming school year.
Of course, we can't leave this episode without our weekly reminder saying, remember to stay up to date on upcoming events, elections, and much more by visiting our main website, GNAT-TV.org. From here, you can navigate to what interests you, such as we've mentioned a lot, upcoming local events. You can also stay up to date on election coverage and all sorts of local happenings and important, really cool stories going on around town. So remember to check out our website, gnat-tv.org. And as I understand it, Andrew, one notable event coming up soon is this blues festival at the Southern Vermont Arts Center this Sunday. Yeah,
there'll be a blues concert this Sunday starting at 7:30 at the Southern Vermont Arts Center. A couple of bands will be playing there. Some folks might remember there was a blues festival there a couple of years ago. It was an awful lot of fun, so this one ought to be pretty good too. So if you have the time free on Sunday evening, that might be a lot of fun.
Indeed. Well, is there anything else we should inform the public about? Any important events going on as well?
Just go to the events page on the GNAT website and you can learn everything you need to know.
Indeed. All right, well, that will do it for today's episode. Thank you all so much again for tuning in. It means a lot. We'll see you again next week. But before we go, I should mention, remember to stay tuned for an upcoming interview with the legendary MLB player and announcer Jim Cott. We will be hosting an in-studio interview next week, so stay tuned. It's going to be awesome.
That will be fun. I remember watching him play.
Yep. So we'll be back next week hearing from Jim Cott. For the GNAT-TV News Project, I'm Griff McClellan.
And I'm Andrew McKeever. Have a great day, everybody.